Everyone for joining. This is a very special talk that's actually been kicking off a series that we're planning and having for the next couple of weeks from the Veterans ERSG group. We're very lucky today to have David Kendrick as our guest speaker. He's going to be talking about one of the most important topics, I think, as we all can agree, is mental health, but specifically mental health as it pertains to veterans. He'll be talking a little bit about himself, his experiences, and also things that we can be doing to help each other, but also that organizations can help veterans with mental health care as well. Some of the other things we're planning on talking about later on this month will include a woman's perspective on being in the military as well as being a veteran. Also, what it means to be a caregiver, both while in the military, outside the military, and for people who are in the military. That's a great talk that'll be coming up in, I think, next week. But to kick this off, I'm going to hand it over to David. He's going to be sharing a little bit about himself, his journey, and how mental health has become such an important topic for him. All right, so David, whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for that introduction, and thank you all for having me, especially during your lunch hour. I know you guys can be doing a lot of things, but you're listening to me talk, so thank you very much. So, get things started here. I'm a Purple Heart military veteran. I joined the Army in 2005 as a Cavalry Scout. Cavalry Scout, that's one of the most dangerous jobs that you can do in the military. It was my job to do reconnaissance, sit on what's called observation post, watching for enemy activity in the area. And exactly, 19 Delta. Somebody knows what that is. Yeah, Cavalry. So I joined in 2005. And this was a very dangerous time during the war. My mom, who's in the hotel room with me here, she wasn't too happy about my decision. But I joined as a Cavalry Scout and I was stationed at Fort Carson, Colorado. And as soon as I got to my unit in 2006, they told me that we deploy in October. I deployed to Iraq in October at 19 years old. And Iraq was Iraq. It was a war zone unlike anything I ever saw. I'm originally from Rochester, New York, the inner city here, and it was nothing compared to where I'm from. So in 2007, I ended up getting shot in both legs by a sniper at the age of 20 years old. And that ended my career. The bullet struck my femoral artery in my left leg. It caused severe nerve damage. It severed my femoral artery, so it took three tourniquets to stop the bleeding. And I caught a really bad blood infection. And after this injury, the doctors didn't know what they were going to be able to do in order to keep my leg because of the blood infection. It actually took two blood transfusions to save my life because in 2007 we lost a lot of soldiers. It was been documented by the New York Times as the bloodiest year of the war. 'Cause in 2007 we lost 899 soldiers. So I got sent back to Fort Carson, Colorado, to the hospital, to Evans Army Community Hospital, and doctors told me that they would do everything they could to save my leg. But we found out that I was going to be permanently disabled. I developed really bad muscle atrophy in my left leg, and they found out that I wasn't going to be able to move the toes of my left foot anymore because of the nerve damage, and I had to go through 3 years of physical therapy in order to walk again. I eventually got out of the army at 23 years old, permanently disabled with severe PTSD and severe mental health issues. Moved back to Rochester, New York, and that's when the reality of my situation really hit me. And my family didn't know much about the military. I was the only one in my family at the time to join the military. So they didn't know exactly what to say to me. They didn't know how to treat me. They seen everything that was going on with my mental health and just really didn't know exactly what was going on, what resources were available here in Rochester, and who to reach out to for help. So I eventually found a program here in Rochester that helped me out, helped me get back on my feet, taught me how to interview for a job because with the army you don't have to interview, especially to be a Cav Scout. And when I entered the civilian workforce, I hit a wall. There's a company here in Rochester called Kodak. It's a really big company. Well, it was at least back in the 90s. And I applied for a temporary job in a warehouse. And this job required that I wear steel toe boots and stand for 12 hours a day. And I did this, and I was hurting every single day because of my injuries. I was disabled. However, I didn't know anything about ADA law. And I was 23 years old, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm 23, I'm disabled. I felt like I was useless in this position because I was a temp. I went through a company called Deco to get this job at Kodak. With me not knowing anything about ADA law, I was afraid to tell my employee, well, I was afraid to tell the temp agency that I had a disability. Along with that, I had PTSD and these mental health issues that were starting to like come up to the surface because I still had friends that were fighting and dying, but this time in Afghanistan. And here I am, disabled myself, and finding myself wanting to go back into the fight because my friends are losing their lives and fighting and dying in Afghanistan. And one day I got really, really drunk and put a bunch of pills in a bottle and drove myself to the hospital and let them know what I had did because I didn't want to live anymore. And I woke up and my mother was in the room with my stepdad, and I could just see the look on their faces. And I thought to myself, okay, it's time for me to get some help, time for me to really find out what's going on, because it was then that I realized the impact that suicide has on families. It's like a when you throw a rock in a pond and you see the ripples. That's how suicide impacts anybody that you're around, your friends, your family, and everyone. So I decided to get some help and educate myself on ADA law, and found out that I do have laws protecting me as a disabled veteran. And everyone loves to say we're proud veteran friendly employer. And even after I educated myself, I found out that these companies that say that, they really don't know how to treat the disabled veteran. And I was in a situation in 2010, no, I'm sorry, in 2018. I moved to Atlanta and worked for a major Fortune 500 company. And there was an issue with the parking. And I tried to explain the best I can that I can't walk from the garage way down the street to get to work. I need to have a parking spot. Well, we had handicap parking spots, but by time 8 o'clock hit, you weren't going to get a spot. So that progressed, and they started a paper trail. And I actually had to go to the EEOC, file a complaint, and go through arbitration with this employer. And this is a Fortune 500 company, and someone who loves to say that we love to hire military. And after the arbitration, I tried to educate them on what veterans like myself go through. Yes, we look just fine. I look just fine. I may come to work smiling and may be able to excel in my work every day. However, I'm hurting every single day as well. I had to move from my hometown, Rochester, New York, down to Atlanta just so I wouldn't have to endure the harsh winters that we have here. And what I try to explain to my employer is, hey, I have this disability. You can't see it, but on certain days, I may need to take time off from work. And luckily, we did have a great benefit package, so I was able to get the time off that was allotted to me as a regular employee. But what I tried to do is start a group for veterans who are disabled so we can educate everyone within the company about what we go through. However, some companies they're stuck in their ways, and they say everyone has to follow the same HR rules and guides and regulations that the regular employee does. And so I ended up leaving the organization because what happened to me happened to other veterans as well, but they were afraid of advocating for themselves because they were afraid that they were going to lose their jobs. So now I am a advocate for mental health. I'm the vice president of an organization called NAMI the CAB. For those of you who know about NAMI, it's a National Alliance on Mental Illness, and it's the largest grassroots mental health organization in the country. And I live in DeKalb County, Georgia, well, DeKalb County in Atlanta, and I serve as the vice president, helping those veterans and those civilians in the area get the mental health access that they need and advocating for veterans in the workplace and advocating for mental health.
Awesome. Just a couple of quick things I want to follow up with. You had mentioned that, I think one of the questions we had covered is, Veterans Day is around the corner. A lot of people who have never been in the military, they always wonder, like, how do they show appreciation or any sort of acknowledgement to veterans? And the common refrain is "thank you for your service," which I think we all appreciate. We appreciate people taking the time to say that. But I think one of the things you mentioned is that, when you came home, even your immediate family and friends didn't know how to have conversations with you about your service, right? There's a lot more that, we as veterans go through than what you see on TV and what is reported in papers. One of the things I found with my friends and relevant family is that over time, like, having conversations about my service is a better way for them to understand, but also for a way for me to open up to them and talk to them about that. I'm just wondering, like, if you found any traction with that since your experiences with mental health issues.
Yes, sir. That's actually how I started my career as a professional speaker. It was in group therapy way back in 2010. I was approached by someone after a group therapy session. They said, "Hey, you do a really good job at telling your story, a story that not too many people are comfortable telling. You should try to tell it in front of an audience." So one day I did that, and now I'm a advocate for mental health, and I'm a speaker for a organization called Source America, which is a organization that tries to get government contracts for people with disabilities, especially veterans. So if you go into a government installation, you may see a group of individuals with special needs who may be cleaning the bathrooms or working in that facility's kitchen or maintaining the property, doing some yard work and things like that. That's how I started my career as a professional speaker, because the things that we talk about are important, and but not everyone's comfortable talking about mental health in front of a group of strangers.
Right.
And I have no problem doing that. And you never know who you're going to help in the audience as well.
Yeah, and I think the question is always, people want to know how they can again, show that appreciation or for military service or military members. Again, I think part of it is just getting to know more about them and about their experience. It doesn't necessarily like have to be about the negative aspects of it. There's a lot of positive things that come from being in the military as well, and there's a lot of things just to learn and understand how being in the military can be such a formative period of time for people, and just understanding how those experiences shape us, both in positive and negative ways.
Exactly. Listen to their stories. Support veteran-owned businesses. Hire veterans. If you know of any nonprofit that is looking to help a veteran out or looking for veteran volunteers, definitely send a veteran their way. I've progressed so much as a veteran. Like, I had the reason I joined as a Cavalry Scout. My ASVAB score, I scored the bare minimum, but now I have a master's degree and I started my own business as a professional speaker. And now I'm able to support myself. But, a veteran is like I don't want to say a Swiss Army knife, but, let's say an American Army knife. you know, it's like just any type of tool that it has anything that you need on it. That's what you're going to get from a veteran, especially in the workplace. Because I know as a Cavalry Scout, I was also a medic. I was a mechanic.
Right.
Sometimes I was a pilot. Sometimes, so just help out. If you need to help a veteran, just find out if they own a business, or just hire a veteran. Bring them in for an interview. They may not be a great fit, but you may know another organization that they may be a fit for.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just kind of broaching into, ways that organizations can support veterans, obviously, is by having certain hiring practices that reach out. At Unqork, we actually have a wonderful program that is the tech pipeline. We work with other sort of tech boot camps to create a pipeline to bring tech vets into tech, specifically into Unqork. And we've seen some very early success with that, and we're continuing that program. It's actually a pretty incredible program. I'll give a special shout out to Dan and others who really helped, Dan Murphy and others who really helped, and Netta Jenkins and a lot of other people who really helped just push that forward. But just speaking, I guess, in more general terms or from your own experience, like what are ways that companies can, sort of increase that olive branch or, help, reduce that barrier to entry for especially vets that are transitioning or military members transitioning to veteran status coming into the civilian workforce for the first time, both just in, concepts of how do we help them to even understand what these jobs are to apply to or to become their new career, or once they're onboarded, what can we do to support them? So you have a lot of really great experience, well, not great, but experiences that looking back on what could those companies have done to better have supported you during that time period?
I firmly believe that it takes a vet to support a veteran. And if an organization has a veteran in leadership or a veteran in HR, they may be the best person to hire a veteran to see what skill set a veteran has. Because me as a Cavalry Scout, I don't have a lot of skills that organizations look for. However, if a veteran hired me in HR, they would know I have the GI Bill. I'm able to go out and get those skills like I did. I came out of the military with no experience. I worked my way up to be able to work for a Fortune 500 company. Now I have my own business speaking. But if there's a veteran who has a executive position in a workplace, or even if they're a manager and they know of other veterans, maybe have a veteran mentorship program because they know what veterans go through as far as mental health. They may know if depending on that veteran's job, if they're in any type of pain, a female veteran may be able to mentor another female veteran in some of these organizations that are male dominated. They may be able to help them get their foot in the door and get some of those executive spots that they may not have gotten without the mentorship and guidance of another veteran like themselves.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And just like, again, once you're in that door and that mentorship, having I guess for lack of a better term, fraternity of veteran members there to support you, meaning both our female and male veterans. But outside of that, obviously, if you look at the distribution of veteran workforce aged members of the U.S. society, it's about 4 or 5% of the workforce are veterans. We're trying at Unqork to increase that representation ourselves. But so it has to go beyond that, right? We can't just depend on ourselves. We have to depend on those that are our colleagues, our managers, our supervisors who aren't veterans. I'm just wondering if there's anything in your personal experiences that you found to be supportive from people who are non-veterans that actually helped you in your career so far.
Oh yeah. So having the programs, there are certain programs that I've had at organizations that not there's not only geared toward veterans, but the lower level employees. Help them become management. Have program training programs with managers who spend about a couple of hours a week with your employees and identify, hey, if there's any veterans in the group, you had leadership experience on the front lines. For example, I led a convoy of 56 people at 19 years old through IED ridden streets in Baghdad. I know I can lead in a civilian workforce. I just need to be able to be taught how to do it as an executive in corporate America because I can't speak the same way in corporate America as I do on the front lines, but the leadership experience is already there. We have to do so many things in the military. And for some people like myself who joined at 18 years old, 17 years old, and who went to combat at an early age, those leadership skills, they don't go anywhere. They follow you everywhere you go. So it may just take an executive or a mentor, not even a veteran, it could be a regular civilian to help pluck those skills out that the company needs from that veteran so that veteran can become a leader in the organization.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's one of those things I think that all veterans understand just by experience is that, one, the entire career path, especially for enlisted individuals, is very regimented. Like everything is very well structured. You understand the path to the next step. It's about as close to meritocracy as one can get in a
Very
professional
linear.
setting. right? Like everything is measured. There's a metric, and you're held accountable for that. But as far as the training, though, for the next step, it's there. It's built in. We all go through leadership training programs. We're put into some pretty interesting positions of responsibility at a very young age, as you just noted. And again, that's not skills that are left once we transition to the civilian side, right, and become veterans. It follows us. It's just being sort of learning the new lingua franca, right? Like learning the new terminology. Like we have all our fun acronyms in the military, and I'm sure we could have a great conversation where no one's going to follow us. But same thing in the civilian industries, right? We have our own little fun acronyms within Unqork, that someone won't understand what we're saying outside the company. But it's just learning that, it's getting that sort of mentorship, that coaching to apply those skills, which are universal in a new role, and just getting that opportunity, I think, is the key thing there. Kind of jumping over as far as like, you were talking about like that one organization, you had to go to arbitration, unfortunately, to have them understand how they were falling very short of their requirements to support you in mental health. I'm just wondering, like, what are things that you coach companies with helping them to understand how to better support veterans, with their special sort of needs around mental health care?
Understanding what the veteran has gone through. We just got done with 20 years of war. Okay, and some of the symptoms that the veterans that fought the war from 2005 to, let's say, 2010, they may not have the same symptoms and PTSD that the veterans that just fought from, let's say, 2015 to 2020 have. The war has changed. The tactics have changed in the workplace, or in not the workplace, but on the battlefield. And the things that the mental health issues that follow us from the battlefield, they've changed along those 20 years in the war as well. For I had to tell my employer, everyone loves to celebrate birthdays, and I am terrified of balloons because if one of them pops, for me, it's gonna sound like the sound of a sniper rifle, and it's those subtle things that for a veteran it can bring back all the memories they don't want. It can, and who knows how long it's gonna take for those memories to go away. That employee may hear a balloon pop and may have to be out of work for the next week because now they're dealing with nightmares, flashbacks, every all those unwanted feelings that a civilian may not think about. So
Right.
what I like to do, let them know exactly what veterans go through. I just bought a program to DeKalb County called NAMI Homefront, which it teaches the community about veteran mental health issues, what we go through. Even somebody like me who was injured way back in 2007, getting shot by a sniper, feeling for me feeling vulnerable bring back feelings of PTSD. So in the workplace, I used to hate when a supervisor would stand behind me because that's when I feel most vulnerable. And they would say, "Well, David, I'm just watching you work." And I'll have to politely ask, "Can you stand to the side of me or at least where I can see you?" Because I just don't like feeling vulnerable. And those are the things that, no one would know unless you have someone to speak the veteran language or let you know what veterans go through on the battlefield and how it affects them in the workplace as well.
Yeah, I think anyone can identify with having someone behind them watching them being kind of uncomfortable. Hopefully, that manager took that practice from your feedback and applied it more universally. So, given your sort of journey through mental health and the issues that you went through, what are some tools that you found to be useful to you and that you've seen provide benefit to others?
Okay, so I have something called a mental health millionaire, and these are people who have so much positive mental health currency that they can give you some of their mental health currency and deposit it into your bank, and their mental health currency will not be they won't be depleted at all. And it's those people that are just so energized and happy in the morning, it almost make you sick. But sometimes their positivity is infectious. It's that person who you go get a cup of coffee and they may say, "Hey, Jason, how you doing?" And you're like, "Oh," but it's contagious because whatever you're feeling mentally, it may go away. So I love to surround myself with positive people because there are days when I wake up and I know it may be a bad day for me depending on how my leg feels. Or I know that okay, it's going to be cold outside or it's going to be raining. My leg is going to hurt. Let me call somebody who I know is really positive, so positive that it's going to make you sick. Let me hang around them for a couple of days or a couple of minutes and feed off of their positive energy so I can go on and have a great day. Because in the workplace, when I was a manager, I guess I used to have a face, and I don't want to say it, but we all know what the resting face is. And people would go to my boss and say I looked unapproachable. And they used to always say, "Well, David, this isn't the military. These aren't soldiers. These are your employees." So it's just always having those people around you who are positive.
Yeah, I love that concept of mental positivity as currency. I love that. Actually, one of my very best friends, he's also a veteran. He's very much a believer in positive energy, and so first thing he does is he gets in the morning, he goes on the long run, which I mostly try to do myself. And he just waves at everyone he sees, smiles at everyone. He said, "That's my gift to you. I'm trying to give you a good morning." Right. So, sometimes he gets some weird reactions, but that's his thing. I love that concept. Um, I'm seeing a couple questions kind of piling in here. But just following this thought process. So, you're talking about being a manager, and I'm going to try to incorporate this question from so what, and like we talked about how there's this great sort of leadership skill set that we can bring into the civilian workplace. But what are other skills that you've seen for yourself that you acquired in the military that might not be something that checks a box immediately, but brings value to an organization just by having veterans?
Those intangible skills like integrity, duty. What I love to say, a veteran is they're going to do what they think is right when there's always going to be a situation in the workplace you're not going to be trained for. There's nothing in the work manual that tells you what to do in the situation. A veteran is going to do what they think is right at the time because that's what we were trained to do. Because there's always going to be a situation in the military where you have to act immediately because what you do, it may save someone's life. And as a veteran in the workplace, if there's a customer interaction or someone, or you're just having a back and forth battle via email with a customer or vendor or something like that, we know what to do to not make the mission, to complete the mission, but to support the company and not make the company look bad in whatever situation that they're in, especially as a frontline employee, and that builds faith in your management, and it makes people trust you. And it happened for me. Eventually you be able to become a manager, and then you can instill that in your employees. Because I let my employees, when I was a manager, I would say, if you're in a situation and you don't know what to do something. That way I can defend you and you can defend yourself, but don't come to me and say, well, I didn't know what to do, so I didn't do anything.
Yeah, no, I think that's basically the skill of a crisis management, right? Like, so we've all been through some pretty, critical environments, and having to quickly survey the issue, understand what's going on, understanding what are things that you can impact and have a direct result that you're looking for, and then moving on those or executing. I think that is something that we're hammered on it. We were trained for it. We went through experiences that basically hardened that concept. And then applying the civilian world, yeah, to a lot of points. There's going to be times where there's a critical time crunch. Something needs to happen, and having everyone freeze doesn't allow for an outcome that's any different than where you started, and that's not generally where you want to be. There are other skills I think that you touched on a little bit there. You have a highly motivated individual who has gone through rigorous training and has succeeded on the other side, right? They have a track record there. So bringing them into an environment, touching back to what you said, is you had the skill set, you just needed the proper sort of training around this new role, right, to apply that training. And I think that applies to that as well, right? So you've shown a track record there. There's other things too. You've mentioned, we have a high sense of duty. We will, do what we can to achieve success for our teams and for ourselves. And then also the idea of integrity. I think that is something that we understand is a baseline core value that without nothing else can really sustain. because if we can't trust those around us to act with integrity, then we have no assumption of what to trust moving forward together, right?
Exactly. And to share a little story, a contributing factor for me becoming a manager, one day our team manager was out. And of course, everybody was kind of relaxed on the team and things like that. However, we all could see each other's metrics in the call center. So I just sent out an email saying, "Hey guys, let's get back on track. Let's focus. I've seen a few of you guys take an extra 5 minutes on your lunch." Being that employee that other employees say, "Well, he thinks he the boss. Who is he?" However, when my manager came back, they saw that and they said, "Okay, well, I see that somebody has integrity. I trust you when the team isn't around. Maybe you can lead your own team one day." And 4 months later, I became a team manager.
Yeah, it's that mentality that I think, again, we learn very quickly when there is a need for for whatever reason the leader is not present, someone still needs to lead.
Hmm.
You can't have a rudderless ship, to use that expression from the Navy, I guess, kind of adrift in the sea. There is a question that, sorry.
Do you mind if I jump in and ask a quick
Yeah,
question?
go for it.
Hey, David, first of all, thank you for sharing your story. Just amazing. I really appreciate it. But in the view of kind of lessons learned of kind of your transition from going to the military into civilian life, or military, dealing with your mental illness in lessons learned, is there anything that you might have done differently now that you're kind of looking back in retrospect that might be able to help people on the phone, of kind of something to look out for, or lessons learned, or in some way to manage the process?
Good question. I wish that I would have went back and learned more about ADA law and how to advocate for myself as an individual with a mental and physical disability, because at first I didn't, and I didn't have the best attitude in the workplace, and I made it known, which wasn't a great it wasn't great on my part. I seemed like I was somebody who was unapproachable, just didn't want to be there, and other teammates didn't want to talk to me on the team either. However, I learned this during COVID. When I was able to work remotely, my production, it skyrocketed because I didn't have to deal with some of the stressors, going to work every day, dealing with traffic, trying to find a parking spot, those things that really, when you're already a veteran, when you're a veteran and you're already dealing with your own mental health issues and it's cold or entering the winter time, now I'm dealing with my physical issues, my leg hurts and aches and pains and things like that. Those are certain things that I didn't have to worry about working remotely. So I just wish I knew earlier on in my life how to advocate for myself instead of just being angry, because that did nothing for my career.
That's super helpful, and thanks for sharing that. Jason, thanks for letting me hop in and ask.
Yeah, no worries at all. It's a great question. It kind of goes back to something you've already said, like, so, you didn't understand how to express yourself in a way or advocate for yourself, right? And it kind of goes back to, ultimately what you said your experience was that led to your decision that day to, attempt to take your own life. You had mentioned that, like, I guess what you're doing, which is I feel like a lot of veterans do, and a lot of people do in general, is we minimize our personal pain in comparison to others. We always imagine there's someone else dealing with more, there's someone else doing something, and so we should be able to deal with whatever it is on our own, right? Like we have that concept that's just kind of built into some of us, and I think in the military it's even hammered in further because we're taught to continue on, right? You continue on to the missions achieved to the best of your abilities. And I feel like with veterans, that is something where we internalize that to the point of our mental health, right? That means minimizing our personal pain. And I'm just wondering, you mentioned one of the things that you've learned now is to take these sort of mental health days. I'm just wondering, what do you do during these days, if you can share, and how do you leverage those days to sort of, heal yourself, or at least get yourself back into whatever that baseline that you're trying to achieve?
Okay. Kind of a two-part question. I'm gonna answer both parts here. So when I went on to get my degrees, I found myself in a lot of organizations where I was the only African American on the floor and the only veteran. And I didn't want to be this guy who everyone else saw is always taking off from work. Always, he's never here. And but why does he still have a job when I can't take time off from work? And that's when I had to teach myself you have to do what's best for you. Like you said, we as a veteran, we always think of ourselves as these big warriors who can never show any sign of weakness. And then with me being, the only African American male in that position, I was always trying to go above and beyond because there were certain areas or certain times when I felt like the spotlight was on me and I had to work harder to prove that I belonged. That's never the case. And if you know your organization have those mental health days, take them. Take them. They're for you because we love to. I know a lot of people that say they love to save those days up so they can take a week off at a time, and it does nothing for their mental health. Like so, on my mental health days, I lay in the bed. I really there's a app called Calm that I like to use sometime. And just I'd like to focus on me, go to the gym and really focus on things that I can do because there are some days when I feel absolutely worthless. Example, last year walking down the stairs, my leg gave out and I fell and I gave myself a concussion. Felt absolutely worthless. And I live on my own. So I went to sleep afterward and doctors told me, I could have died and everything. And I still wanted to go to work after that.
Yeah.
But I had to realize that these days are for you. They're for your mental health. Focus on things that you can do. Focus on the positives. And for me, the first positive, I still have my life. There are soldiers and wars before me who, if they were shot in their femoral artery, they would have been gone. But thanks to the medicine and technology that we have now, I'm here, and I'm here for a reason. Not to get too religious, but I didn't die for a reason, and that's to spread my story and advocate and help other people who are going through what I've gone through. Because you never know what veteran committed suicide whose life may have been saved if they just heard someone just like them talk their language. So I just love to advocate, get in the community, do my work with Nami the Cab, and just really focus on the positives in my life.
Yeah, I think that's something that, all of us sort of take it for granted sometimes is really just focusing on the positives. And I think taking time and dedicating that time to that is actually universal, that we all can benefit from. Just making sure there's any new questions.
Jason, I have a question.
Yeah, go for it, Yuval.
So, hi, David. I'm Yuval. I'm a veteran, but for a different army, IDF, Israel. And I've seen some action myself. So many times, veterans, they talk about maybe the negative parts. I'm actually interested to hear from you before you got injured about 19 Delta, if you have any interesting experiences.
Yeah, man. So 19 was 2006 was the best year of my life. I was still young, and I learned a lot in the military, a lot. And I actually wrote a book about it. It's called Calvary. You can find it on Amazon. But just being with a great group of guys that are still my friends to this day, that I'm closer with than my own family and friends, and being stationed in Fort Carson, Colorado, and Colorado Springs, it was nothing like it. And just being able to say that I am a African American cavalry scout, just like the Buffalo Soldiers were back in the 1800s, and that's a very influential group of African American soldiers that defended country, and they did it on horseback. um, so just everything about 2006, and even in the war, like I had some great times in the war, just because my best friends were there with me. There's nothing like that. You can have fun in war. We still play video games. I was still 19 years old, so I was still a kid, but just fighting the war in Iraq, but still wanting to play video games and shoot basketball and things like that, and trying to call home whenever I could. My mom's sitting over here trying to call my mom and wait on lines and phone tents. Just all these great memories that I was able to write about in a book. It was nothing like it.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Mhm.
Thanks, Yuval. We're getting closer to wrapping up. So I just want to kind of touch on a couple of things. You had mentioned that, like, the U.S. just closed a chapter where we were engaged in active war for 20 years. There's a whole entire generation of people who were born and raised during an era of war. And I'm just wondering, like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how, like, as far as mental health goes, being a veteran, and what does that mean to having people who sort of, this is all they knew, and now they're actually, adults in our society?
The most important thing about this, I said the physical war is over with, but for some people, the mental war is about to begin because the average rotation for a unit, you spend 1 year in Iraq or Afghanistan, 1 year back in the States, and it's just repeats. So for some people, it was just 20 years, a year on, a year off, a year on, a year off. And even if you're not a combat veteran, hearing about veterans that lost their lives, your friends, if you had a mortar attack that came onto the base that you're at, you're still dealing with trauma.
Yeah.
And now that you're out of that, now that we as a country are finally out of that environment, a lot of that buried trauma is going to come to the surface. And now, family, mothers, daughters, uh, fathers, sisters, brothers are going to have to be the support system for these veterans who, for the past 20 years, have known nothing but war. And for some children, all they've known is their dad. They don't know who their dad is as a regular person. They always know, hey, he went to war, he's back. He's here, he's back. So they're really getting to know who their father really is, who their mother really is, who their brother is, who their sister is. And it's imperative that they support them along the journey, especially recovering from their mental health.
Yeah, you'd mentioned earlier, like, when, you went through your episode with your mental health, and you said you hadn't realized just the impact your actions had on those around you, like that ripple effect, as you mentioned, the pebble in the pond, right? It's something that, as more and more of these people are returning to, we'll call it a more normal life, that ripple effect is going to be compounded by everyone else around them, right? There's going to be a lot more ripples in that pond just from this, everyone returning. And so I'm just wondering, like, are there things that you do, or that you're a proponent of, to help people sort of with that transition time, or with supporting those that are returning to civilian life?
Yes, that's the work that I do with NAMI. So I live in Atlanta, and recently a report from Mental Health America stated that Georgia ranks last when it comes to access for mental health care in the country. We're in last place. So I do a lot with NAMI the Cab. I just brought a program called NAMI Homefront to NAMI the Cab. Over the summer, we got a grant from United Way where we were able to partner with different community members, vendors in the community, and get people free of mental health appointments, free therapy appointments, free yoga appointments, just painting, things that just make life a little bit easier, because you never know for somebody what yoga does. It's great exercise, but relaxing, hearing the music, it may relax them and help them deal with whatever they're dealing with for the day. Or just painting a picture. You never know what that can do for somebody. For me, my therapy is speaking, because you never know in your audience who's on the brink of suicide, who's dealing with whatever. Because, on the outside we look just fine, but up here is where the battle is. So for me, just talking is therapy, and hopefully we'll be able to bring more programs to the state of Georgia.
That's incredible. Netta, do you have something to say? It looks like.
Yeah, just one thing. Well, thank you so much, David, for dropping all these gems today. And you may have shared this earlier on, but what inspired you and empowered you to get into the Army? What was that decision like, and how did you join?
All right. When I used to be a really bad kid. So I wanted something that was a challenge. I was 17. I was a hothead, and I told my recruiter, I want something that looks cool and that will get all the girls.
Hopefully you did that.
but you know what? Being a cavalry scout, I mean, I wanted the challenge, and I told my recruiter I wanted to come back with a story to tell, and obviously I have one. But there was just nothing like being on the front lines and to be, with a group with my unit, which made history, by the way, 361 Cav. But to be an African American on the front lines, you don't hear about too many African Americans who join the army just to fight. And to be along the same in the same lineage with the Buffalo Soldiers, it's just nothing like it. And even though I was injured, lost friends, I don't regret anything. I would do it all over again because those are the best times of my life.
And then just, with Veterans Day being tomorrow, I'm just wondering, like, what does it mean for you? How do you observe it? And what are your thoughts on how others should recognize Veterans Day?
This is going to be the first Veterans Day in 20 years where we're not fighting an actual war. I think that, every organization should celebrate because now our parents don't have to worry about their son or daughter coming home. It's the most important Veterans Day that we've had in 2 decades because everybody's home. We don't have to worry about any of our brave soldiers, airmen, Marines, anybody in harm's way. Um, we've lost a lot of soldiers over the past 20 years, and we kind of, at the end of the war, we kind of lost sight of what we're even fighting for anymore. So to have everybody home and to be able to spend the holiday season with loved ones, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Again, I think it's just to your point, spending time with loved ones is, something that when you're in the military, especially, like, it's a luxury to be able to spend that time when you can with loved ones. Just one last question's popped up. Let me see. So yeah, actually, it's a great question. We'll make this last question, and then I just want to make sure we give time to team member here. So how would you characterize the evolution of the support system for veterans? Both when you were in your early years after your return, but also today, and where do you think it's going?
They're trying. The VA is trying, but the issue is there's so many veterans who have mental health issues that the VA is really overwhelmed. So there are a lot of nonprofit organizations like NAMI who are helping out individual communities. Since the VA is ran by the federal government, there's a lot of red tape that veterans have to go through. And for some veterans who are at the end of their rope, they don't have time to go through all that red tape because suicide is right around the corner. So that's why I love the work that I do with NAMI and all the other nonprofits in all around the country. Because if a veteran walks in the door and they need help, they get it. They don't have to walk in and then come out with an appointment 90 days down the road. So the VA, they're getting better, but we're going to have a lot of soldiers getting out of the military and relying on them for help, and they may not get it in time. So I would highly, highly recommend that any veterans, or if you guys know any veterans that are getting out of the military, look for local nonprofits in the area who have the resources, who have the staff, who have the time to take care of that veteran's needs.
Yeah, we're going to be highlighting a few of those in our company Slack channels for people to support with some incentives from the Veterans ERSG. We'll share then. But in closing, actually, I want to introduce Angela Daly to sort of talk about what Unqork does to support mental health care at the organization.
Okay. And I put my real quick my website in the chat as well.
Yep, and we have it all over our Slack channels too.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yep. Sorry, Angela.
No, you're totally fine. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for hosting this. Also, thanks, David, for being here. Totally appreciate you and sharing your story. I think it's awesome that we're having this event right now. And just a quick introduction. So I just started as a benefits manager here just about a month and a half ago. Super happy to be here. Mental health solutions is near and dear to me, and I think it's something that can always, use improving, especially at companies. So I just wanted to go over real quick the solutions that we have available right now, and also just to put it out there that if you ever have any feedback or suggestions, like I'm always open for the conversation and looking for that. And And I think that hopefully in the future, we can continue to offer even more than we have right now. But so we do have a partnership with MindWorks, which is therapy at a discounted rate. So if you're interested in syncing up with a therapist, MindWorks does have a discounted rate of $75 a session, which therapy we know is super expensive. Sometimes it's challenging getting it through, our medical providers. And I think this day and age, people are, starting to actually address their mental health issues. And so we've seen such a surge in usage, which has made it even more crucial to have additional offerings. So we do have this partnership with MindWorks. And then in addition to that, we have an employee assistance program. So this is basically a 24/7 availability to speak with a licensed professional. It could be with any range of issues, personal issues for you or your dependents, financial issues. So that's 24/7 free, unlimited counseling sessions via telephone. Both of these are listed on the Confluence page. So if you go to the benefits overview, go to the perks section, you'll find both of these listed with links and how to access them and get that started.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'll try to find those and add those to the Slack channel as well. So I just want to take a moment to say thank you so much, David, for taking the time to share your story with us, to share your insights and all this wonderful information. It was an incredible conversation. I'm so glad to have met you and to have had this opportunity to have this conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for having me and just allowing me to talk. Like I said, this is my therapy, and never know who listened today or, or in the future may get benefit from hearing this, So thank you guys for having me. Thank you for supporting veterans, and I just wish you all a happy Veterans Day. If there's any veterans in the listening to me right now.
Oh, there's a few of us out there. All right. Well, again, thank you so much. For everyone else, like I said, I'll be adding some information about some of these wonderful organizations that David has mentioned, as well as others that we're going to hopefully direct people to donations, and we'll have some more information on that coming up very shortly in the Slack channels. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David. Have a wonderful Veterans Day.
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you so much.